this lack of trust can only be healed by actions, not words. I know that. But we can make a start today with the simple acknowledgement that public service is a privilege and that your government should treat every single person in this country with respect.
Now, to unpack this even further, I'm joined by Philip Catney from Madley, Staffordshire. He is a senior lecturer in politics at Keele University in England. Really good to have you here on the programme. And as Ollie was sort of alluding to there, you know, some people say that the honeymoon for Keir Starmer might be quite short. Now he has to take on this mammoth task of fixing the economy. What do you see as his sort of biggest challenges now going forward?
Well, there's several. One is how does he get growth back into the British economy? This has been a concern that's been it's been a concern that the British governments have been thinking about for a while. Liz Truss had a particular idea how she would do that, and it didn't particularly succeed. But Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer said that one thing that will unlock a lot of other problems they'll have is getting economic growth back into the economy, because that then produces additional tax revenues that pay for the other things they want to do. The other things they have, your correspondent mentioned there, things like house building. There is a housing shortage and a housing crisis of affordability in this country. And many young people feel locked out of the British property market, and that creates its own social problems. So they've got to. They promised they're going to build 1.5 million homes a year. That's an ambitious target. That's going to be quite challenging to reach if the private sector is left to do it its own. So they might have to think about more activist ways in which the government can intervene in that market. There are other things the government will need to do, things like the healthcare system. We are an aging population. We have increasing costs on things like adult social care. These are putting quite significant strains on the exchequer. So I anticipate Labour will try and find ways to enhance people's care, their support at home and other things, try and reduce the burden on the exchequer. There are other issues. They need to find pay settlements with people like the junior doctors. So there's a whole array of different demands upon the exchequer, and there isn't a lot of money. The UK's debt figures are looking the projections are quite scary if there isn't considerable austerity. There's no ambition, there's no appetite for austerity from the British public. They've had enough of that, and the votes last night tells us that. But the problem is that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, and Keir Starmer have very limited, we call it fiscal headroom. That means money to play with to deal with the problems that the country is confronted by. So this is the problem. And this was where the former Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, was saying Labour weren't being honest. Well, no party was being particularly honest about the state of the finances and how they're going to deal with it. But this is a problem now. That Labour has decided they're not going to raise some of the key tax like income tax, value-added tax in the UK. They're going to have to find other ways of raising taxation then, and they're probably going to go after things like capital gains tax. So there are tough decisions and potentially unpopular decisions. And when you look at the electoral calculus, yes, this looks like a very large victory. But when you look at the actual votes accumulated, it's not the blowaway results that it might first appear. And that's where this leaves Keir Starmer with a potential problem. It looks like he's got a massive mandate. Is there really the appetite to get a lot of the more tougher decisions made? We'll find out.
And looking at Keir Starmer as a world leader, what kind of leader will he be on the world stage in meetings with other world leaders?
Already, lots of countries like Ireland, for example, have welcomed him because they see him as somebody who's far more likely to operate bilaterally and not try to breach international law in the way that the last government was not trusted to. In fact, the British government a couple of times said, well, we'll happily breach international law if we have to do this for migration or other issues, or solving the Northern Ireland Brexit problem at one point. And that undermined international partners' confidence that Britain would actually credibly commit itself to the various things its predecessors did. So Keir Starmer will have to think about an issue which didn't really come to the election, but it's come out in the voting, which is about the climate change and the environment. The Green Party has done quite well. It's taken a seat from a key Labour figure, but it's eaten away quite a few parts of the country, but and Keir Starmer himself said that he wants to do something ambitious with climate change. But he's going to have to do something. Given what I said previously about the fiscal limits to this, he's going to have to find a way of trying to find some ways out of this problem that they've got in terms of how do we fund the things that we can't really pay for at the moment.
And the work certainly starts right now that he's now taken up residence at number 10 Downing Street. Philip Catney from Keele University in England, thank you so much for joining us here on TRT World.